Imagine that there is something you desperately want. Perhaps it is money, a better body, a relationship, more followers, a better job, a new car, or simply the feeling that your life is finally going somewhere. You tell yourself, when I get that, I'll finally be happy. And perhaps you are, for a few days, maybe a few weeks, but eventually something strange happens. The excitement disappears. The thing you once dreamed about becomes ordinary, and then your mind produces another desire, something else to chase, something else to achieve, something else to become, and the cycle begins again. Desire, pursuit, achievement, temporary satisfaction, then desire again. More than 2 centuries ago, a German philosopher named Arthur Schopenhauer argued that this wasn't simply an unfortunate part of life. He believed it was one of the fundamental structures of human existence. According to Schopenhauer, we suffer because we desire. And the cruelest part is that even when we satisfy our desires, we don't escape the cycle. We simply create new ones. This idea sounds pessimistic, but look around. Social media constantly tells us what we should want. Advertising tells us what we are missing. Dating apps tell us there might always be someone better. Self-improvement tells us that we should become better versions of ourselves. And capitalism gives us an almost infinite number of things to purchase. Perhaps Schopenhauer's philosophy is not as outdated as it first appears. Perhaps he understood something about human psychology that we are still struggling to understand. So today we're going to explore one of his darkest ideas: why desire may be the source of much of our suffering, and whether it is possible to escape it. To understand Schopenhauer, we first need to understand his view of existence. Schopenhauer was deeply influenced by Eastern philosophy, particularly Buddhism and Hindu thought, as well as by Western philosophers such as Plato and Kant. But he developed these influences into something uniquely his own. For Schopenhauer, beneath our conscious thoughts and rational decisions was something deeper. He called it the will. The will was not simply the desire to achieve a particular goal. It was a fundamental force pushing living beings to continue existing, striving, reproducing, and wanting. You don't simply decide to want things. Wanting happens to you. You wake up hungry. You become attracted to someone. You want recognition. You become jealous. You want money. You want security. You want status. You want to be admired. And even when you obtain these things, the will continues. This is where Schopenhauer's philosophy becomes disturbing. Because if desire is fundamental to human existence, then eliminating suffering completely may be impossible. As long as you are alive, you will want. And as long as you want, you can be disappointed. Schopenhauer described human existence as something like a pendulum swinging between 2 states, pain and boredom. Think about it. When you desperately want something, you experience tension. You don't have what you want. You imagine your life would be better if you had it, and this creates suffering. You want money. You don't have enough. You want love. You're alone. You want success. You haven't achieved it. You want recognition. Nobody notices you. Desire creates a gap between reality and imagination. And the larger the gap, the greater the suffering. But then something interesting happens. You finally get what you wanted. You get the relationship, the promotion, the money, the body, the followers, the house, the degree, the achievement. And for a moment, the tension disappears. You are satisfied. But satisfaction doesn't last forever. Because once the desire has been fulfilled, there is nothing left to pursue. And the human mind begins looking for something else. This is where boredom appears. Schopenhauer believed that boredom was not simply having nothing to do. It was what happened when desire temporarily disappeared. And so the pendulum swings. Desire creates suffering. Satisfaction creates temporary relief. Relief eventually becomes boredom. Boredom creates new desires. And the cycle begins again. Interestingly, modern psychology has found ideas that resemble parts of Schopenhauer's argument. One of the most important concepts is known as hedonic adaptation. The basic idea is simple. Human beings tend to adapt to positive changes in their circumstances. Something that initially produces enormous happiness gradually becomes normal. Imagine receiving your first expensive phone. At first you are excited. You look at it constantly. You enjoy the camera. You enjoy the screen. You enjoy showing it to your friends. But after a few months it becomes just a phone. Then you see a newer model. Suddenly your perfectly functional phone feels old. Nothing about your phone has actually changed. Your perception has. This happens with possessions, achievements, and even relationships. The brain adapts, and then we start chasing the next source of stimulation. This is remarkably close to Schopenhauer's pendulum. Now consider the modern world. Schopenhauer lived in the 19th century. He never experienced Instagram. He never saw TikTok. He never used YouTube. He never encountered targeted advertising. Yet the world we live in seems almost perfectly designed to keep the wheel moving. Open social media. You see people with better bodies, better holidays, better relationships, better houses, better clothes, better careers, better lifestyles. And suddenly your own life begins to feel inadequate. You didn't necessarily want those things 5 minutes ago, but now you do. This is one of the most important characteristics of modern desire. We don't simply discover desires. Our desires are constantly being manufactured. Advertising tells you, you need this. Social media tells you, you should look like this. Dating apps tell you, maybe someone better is one swipe away. Self-improvement culture tells you, you aren't enough yet. And the result is an extraordinary psychological situation. We live in a world where we can see thousands of possible lives that we could theoretically have. But we can only live one. And this creates endless comparison. The ancient philosopher Epicurus argued that one of the keys to happiness was limiting unnecessary desires. Modern society often does the opposite. It expands them. Interestingly, Schopenhauer and Epicurus came from very different philosophical traditions, but they discovered something similar. Epicurus argued that many desires are unnecessary. He divided desires into different categories, distinguishing between natural and necessary desires, natural but unnecessary desires, and vain or empty desires. You need food. You need shelter. You need friendship. But do you need a mansion? Do you need to be famous? Do you need everyone to admire you? Do you need the newest phone? Do you need thousands of strangers to approve of you? Epicurus believed that reducing unnecessary desires could dramatically reduce suffering. Schopenhauer reached a similarly pessimistic conclusion, but from a darker direction. For Epicurus, simplicity could produce tranquility. For Schopenhauer, simplicity was one way of reducing the endless demands of the will. Both understood something that modern consumer culture often forgets. The number of things you want can determine the number of ways you can be disappointed. But Schopenhauer's influence becomes particularly interesting when we compare him with Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche initially admired Schopenhauer enormously, but eventually he rejected his pessimistic conclusion. Schopenhauer essentially asked, how can we escape suffering? Nietzsche asked something radically different. What if suffering is necessary for greatness? For Nietzsche, the goal wasn't necessarily to eliminate desire. It was to transform it. He believed human beings should not simply suppress their instincts and desires. They should cultivate and direct them. This is where Nietzsche's idea of self-overcoming becomes important. Instead of saying, I want something, therefore I suffer, Nietzsche might ask, what can I become through the struggle of wanting it? The difference is profound. Schopenhauer sees desire primarily as a trap. Nietzsche sees struggle as potentially creative. Imagine two people who want to become physically stronger. The Schopenhauerian approach might say, be careful. Your desire for strength may create dissatisfaction with your current body. Nietzsche might say, good. Use that dissatisfaction as fuel. And this is one of the great philosophical disagreements about desire. Should we reduce our desires? Or should we become strong enough to pursue them without being destroyed by them? Then we encounter Sigmund Freud. Freud was heavily influenced by Schopenhauer, even though the relationship between their ideas is complex. Freud also believed that much of human behavior was driven by forces outside conscious awareness. We like to believe that we consciously choose what we want, but often our desires appear before our reasoning. You see someone, you feel attraction. Only afterwards does your mind construct an explanation. You buy something, then you explain why you needed it. You become jealous. Then you invent reasons why the other person is behaving wrongly. The conscious mind often behaves like a lawyer defending decisions that were already made. Schopenhauer's will and Freud's unconscious are not identical concepts, but they share a disturbing insight. Human beings may not be as rational as they believe themselves to be. We often think that we control our desires, but perhaps many of our desires control us. This problem also appears in literature. Fyodor Dostoevsky repeatedly explored the strange irrationality of human beings. In Notes from Underground, the narrator argues against the idea that humans can simply be reduced to rational calculations of self-interest. Why? Because people sometimes want things that are obviously bad for them. They sabotage themselves. They reject what would make them comfortable. They deliberately choose irrational actions simply to prove that they are free. This creates an interesting problem for Schopenhauer. If humans are driven by desire, then freedom may be much smaller than we imagine. You might think, I chose this. But Schopenhauer might ask, why did you desire it in the first place? And then, did you choose the desire? Perhaps not. You chose according to your desires. But you did not choose the desires themselves. Now let's bring this philosophy into everyday life. Imagine a young person. At 18, he wants to become successful. He tells himself, when I'm financially independent, I'll be happy. So he studies, works, builds a career. Eventually, he earns more money. For a moment, he feels successful. But then he discovers something. His friends are earning even more. Someone else has a better car. Someone else has a bigger house. Someone else is traveling more. Someone else has more followers. The finish line moves. So he works harder. And this is the hidden problem with many forms of ambition. The goal is not necessarily the problem. The problem is believing that reaching the goal will permanently solve dissatisfaction. Because once you arrive, you may discover that you have simply moved the destination. This is why some extraordinarily successful people remain deeply unhappy. They achieved what they wanted, but wanting never ended. There is an idea in psychology sometimes associated with this phenomenon called the hedonic treadmill. You keep running, but you don't necessarily move forward psychologically. You earn more. Your expectations increase. You acquire more. Your standard of living increases. But your baseline level of satisfaction may return towards normal. This creates a strange paradox. A person can improve their life dramatically while still feeling that something is missing. And this is where Schopenhauer becomes extremely relevant. Perhaps modern society has become exceptionally good at satisfying desires, but terrible at preventing the creation of new ones. You can order food in minutes, find entertainment instantly, meet thousands of people online, buy almost anything, travel across the world, access endless information. Yet anxiety, loneliness, and dissatisfaction have certainly not disappeared. Technology has reduced countless forms of suffering, but it may also have multiplied the number of things we believe we need. This brings us back to Schopenhauer's fascination with Eastern philosophy. Buddhism begins with a remarkably similar observation. Human existence contains suffering, and one major cause is craving or attachment. We desperately want reality to be different from what it is. We want pleasure to remain. We want pain to disappear. We want people to love us. We want people not to leave. We want youth to last. We want success. We want control. But reality doesn't obey our desires. Everything changes. People change. Bodies age. Relationships end. Possessions disappear. And eventually life itself ends. From a Buddhist perspective, suffering is intensified when we cling to things that are inherently impermanent. Schopenhauer wasn't simply reproducing Buddhism. His philosophy is distinct, but the similarities are striking. Both challenge the assumption that getting everything we want is the path to happiness. Instead, they suggest that freedom may come from changing our relationship with wanting. At this point, you might ask, if desire causes suffering, should we simply stop wanting anything? This is where Schopenhauer becomes difficult, because desire isn't simply something we can switch off. You cannot command yourself, from now on, I will have no desires. And even if you could, would that actually produce a meaningful life? This is where Viktor Frankl offers a useful contrast. Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, argued that human beings can endure enormous suffering when they have meaning. His philosophy wasn't about eliminating suffering. It was about finding a reason to live despite it. And this provides an important challenge to Schopenhauer. Perhaps the solution isn't to eliminate desire. Perhaps it is to choose which desires are worth suffering for. There is a huge difference between, I want everyone to admire me, and I want to create something meaningful. Between, I need to be richer than everyone else, and I want financial independence so I can have freedom. Between, I need to look perfect, and I want to become physically stronger because I value discipline. Not every desire is equal. Some desires enslave us. Others give our lives direction. This may be one of the most useful lessons we can take from Schopenhauer. The next time you desperately want something, ask, what exactly do I believe this will give me? Maybe you want money, but perhaps what you really want is security. Maybe you want followers, but perhaps what you really want is recognition. Maybe you want an attractive partner, but perhaps what you really want is validation. Maybe you want a perfect body, but perhaps what you really want is confidence. The object of desire may not actually be the thing you need. And if you misunderstand the underlying need, you can spend your entire life chasing substitutes. You can accumulate money without ever feeling secure, gain followers without feeling valued, become attractive without feeling confident, achieve success without feeling fulfilled. Schopenhauer would tell us that the will simply moves to another object. So what can we actually do? Schopenhauer was not offering a simple self-help program, but his philosophy suggests several practical principles. First, learn to recognize desire. Don't immediately obey every desire that appears in your mind. When you want something, pause. Do I actually need this? Second, reduce unnecessary comparison. The more people you compare yourself with, the more possible inadequacies you discover. Social media can turn this into an endless process. You don't need to delete every app, but you should recognize what they are doing to your desires. Third, learn to tolerate boredom. This may be surprisingly important. If you need constant stimulation, you become dependent on novelty. Silence begins to feel uncomfortable, so you reach for your phone. Then another video, another notification, another piece of entertainment. But boredom can also create space for thought. Schopenhauer himself believed that contemplation and intellectual activity could temporarily free us from the demands of the will. Fourth, choose your desires carefully. You will probably never stop wanting. So the question becomes, what is worth wanting? And finally, learn to enjoy what already exists. Because if you constantly postpone happiness until the next achievement, you may spend your entire life waiting. And now we reach the deepest paradox. Without desire, you might suffer less. But without desire, you might also achieve less. Desire can create suffering, but it can also create art, science, relationships, civilizations, great discoveries, personal transformation. Nietzsche understood this. Frankl understood this. Even Dostoevsky understood it. The problem isn't necessarily that we desire. The problem may be that we become possessed by our desires. There is a difference between saying, I want this, and I cannot be happy without this. The first gives you direction. The second gives the object power over you. And perhaps this is where Schopenhauer's philosophy becomes most useful. He wasn't simply saying, don't want anything. He was forcing us to notice something we normally ignore. Wanting is not free. Every desire comes with a price. If you want status, you must accept competition. If you want wealth, you must accept responsibility and uncertainty. If you want love, you must accept vulnerability. If you want achievement, you must accept failure. If you want strength, you must accept discomfort. The question isn't whether desire produces suffering. It often does. The question is, which suffering are you willing to accept? Perhaps the most uncomfortable lesson from Schopenhauer is this. You may never arrive. There may never be a final achievement that makes you permanently satisfied. There may never be a moment when every desire disappears. Because the moment one desire is satisfied, another can take its place. And modern society has become extraordinarily efficient at ensuring that this happens. There is always another product, another achievement, another body to build, another person to impress, another destination, another level, another number, another goal. The machine never tells you, you have enough. It tells you, almost. And perhaps that is why Schopenhauer remains relevant. He forces us to ask a question that modern culture rarely asks. What if the problem isn't that you don't have enough? What if the problem is that you keep being taught to want more? Maybe happiness doesn't come from finally obtaining everything you desire. Maybe some degree of happiness comes from discovering that you don't need everything you desire. Epicurus tried to reduce unnecessary wants. Buddhism tried to loosen attachment. Schopenhauer tried to escape the tyranny of the will. Nietzsche tried to transform desire into strength. Frankl tried to give suffering meaning. They disagreed profoundly, but together they reveal something important. Human beings are not simply creatures that seek pleasure. We are creatures that constantly construct new reasons to be dissatisfied. And perhaps maturity begins when we learn to distinguish between what we want, what we need, and what is actually worth suffering for. Because the goal may not be to create a life without desire. That is probably impossible. The goal may be to create a life in which your desires serve you, rather than you serving them. And the next time you find yourself thinking, when I finally get this, I'll be happy, stop and ask yourself, what happens when I get it? Because Schopenhauer's answer would probably be, you will want something else. And perhaps the real freedom begins when you finally understand that. If you found this video interesting, consider subscribing to the channel, and if you enjoyed it, leave a like. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you'd like to see more videos like this. Because in the next video we can go even deeper into the darker side of philosophy, and explore why Schopenhauer believed that intelligent people may actually suffer more than everyone else.